Hello and welcome to Q&A Thursday. Fantastic to have you here. We've got another fantastic and relevant topic that we're going to speak about today. In fact, this came through as a question to me via the Facebook page. So it was really, really good. I'm just going to turn this sound down a bit. Hang on. There we go. All right. Now we're on. Hi, Felicity. How you going? Great to see you here. So obviously I can be seen and heard, so that's brilliant. So I've got a topic today that came through the Facebook page. So this was really quite topical for somebody who has been dealing with this issue for quite some time. So it's all about, and she was saying, my micromanager is driving me crazy. What am I going to do about it? And I get this a lot, and I think it's worth having another chat about it and having another revelation of the damage that this can cause, but not only the damage that it could cause, the reasons why they might be doing this, and then some step-by-step things that you can do to try and overcome this situation, because it's a really, really difficult situation to be in. So before I share my slides with you, I've got a couple of things that I wanted to share with you. There was a recent survey done around micromanagers, and it revealed out of those people that were surveyed, 68% of those people who feel micromanaged said it decreases their morale. So they feel less happy about being at work, which is, an obvious reason. The other thing it said is 55%, it actually hurts their productivity. So what they're finding is they're not getting the same performance that they were able to give before because of the micromanaging boss and because of all the extra things that they have to do to satisfy, their micromanaging boss. So what we're going to talk about is the why. So why do bosses micromanage? And there is a number of reasons. I'm not saying that this justifies it, but I'm saying there's lots and lots of reasons that we need to recalibrate our thinking and think, well, this is their behavior, not mine. So these are the reasons why it could happen. And then we could have maybe a little bit of a seek to understand and then be able to work with them in some ways. And I'll show you how. So what are the reasons why? So number one, your boss might be relatively new in their job. So if they're relatively new in that position, they're trying to make a really good rapport with everybody. They're trying to impress the boss. They're trying to show that they're worthy of this role. And they might be feeling really insecure in themselves, which is causing them to be that micromanager, making sure everything's perfect, getting, heaps and heaps of feedback on where you are, what you're doing, how you're doing it, when you're going to be finished, what's the deadline, all that sort of stuff. And it might be because they're relatively new and they're trying to impress. Another reason why they could be doing it is because your boss might suffer from OCD or something like that, where there's a chemical in the brain that really struggles to trust people or trust certain circumstances. So then they're always coming back to have another look. Is it going right? Is it where I want? Is it where it needs to be? So there might be that as well. The next one, there's a high correlation between insomniacs and micromanagers. So those people that suffer from insomnia and struggle sleeping, they're all laying awake all night going, I could be doing this at work, could be doing that at work, could be doing this at work, this could be done. And then they come in and they act on that. So, that's another reason why your boss might be a micromanager. The fourth one is high performers. So when I'm talking about high performers, I'm talking about people that have been promoted because they knew their job really well. They knew the product, they knew the policies, they knew how to work the machines, whatever it was, they were high performers in their field. And then they've been given the leadership position. The missing link here is they haven't got the people skills to actually lead people. So they might be great at their job and they might know how to work the machines and they might know how to, create products or whatever it may be. But what they don't know how to do is build the capability of their team or delegate effectively or have crucial conversations or set accountabilities or create a team vision, all those sort of things, which are instrumental to leadership. They don't have that yet. So, and that's part of our recruitment drive, which is all wrong. So they might be been put in a position where they actually don't have the people skills to lead a team of people, which is an issue. A quick story about that. When I was in the military, I had a young man, let's call him John, for example, who was very high standards, high performer, was way up there, was always doing stuff and getting stuff done, and really a pleasure to work with. But when he got put in charge of a team of people, the team absolutely couldn't stand him. And the reason why is because he's had such a high standard, and he had an expectation that everybody's standard would be up to him. And anything that fell below that was not good enough in his eyes. So, he created a lot of resentment. He created a lot of pushback. He created people that would avoid him and not come and ask him things. People were losing respect for him. He was losing credibility. So then to try and crawl that back, he was being more demanding and more direct and all those sorts of things. So it was causing this absolute train wreck of a team. So what we decided to do is I sat down with him and I said, you know what, John, I think, you're a great performer. You've got high standards and all those sorts of things. I think it's time you've got some 360-degree feedback from your team. So I did up a simple tool, and you can do the same thing via Google. Just Google 360-degree feedback questions, do a quick one up. If you need one because you can't be bothered doing that, just call me or ask me at ask@teamleadertoolkit.com. I'll give you mine, a quick, simple 10-question 360-degree feedback tool. And me as John's boss, so I was his boss. I said, right, let's do a 360-degree feedback to your tool with your team. I'll give out the questions. It'll come to me. I'll correlate them and put them all together, and then I'll give you the feedback. So when I correlated all that feedback, none of it was good, let me tell you. So I did pull it all together, and I tried to keep it as true as possible. I might have changed some of the language to make it more constructive, but it certainly had the same messaging. And I had to sit down and have that really confrontational, crucial conversation about his performance as a leader. And we sat down and did some action planning. And let me tell you, he was gobsmacked. There was a lot of blind spots for him that he didn't realise he was having that impact on others. So we sat down, did some action planning. I worked with him, and credit to him, within 12 months, he'd turned that team around. He'd really, really focused on himself and realised there was things that he needed to do differently, and it worked out for the best. So remember, high performers that get into leadership positions aren't necessarily great leaders, and in fact, they mostly aren't. So we need to make sure that we uncover their blind spots. So if you've got a micromanaging boss, maybe you could go to your HR or their boss and go, do you know what, I think it's a really ideal time that, John Smith or whoever your boss's name is, had some 360-degree feedback. I think he'll really, get some quality out of it. Would you be willing to run this for him? I've even got a feedback sheet that you can use. Here it is. And if you could coach him through that, that would be great. Something like that, because that might help the situation. Another reason why your boss might be a micromanager is they don't have enough work themselves. So if they don't have enough work themselves, they're going to be on your back all the time, because they're going to be creating more work because they're bored. So that's another reason why. And another one that I think that we need to be mindful of is, are you messing up? Now, what I mean by that is sometimes, and it's a really common practice, so if you do this, it's okay. It's very, very common. You just need to be aware of it. So what usually happens is we have a micromanaging boss that is driving us crazy and doing lots of things and on our back all the time and wanting all these feedbacks and all this sort of stuff. So what we need to do, what we usually do, our reaction is we push back. So we might be late to that meeting, or we might not give that feedback on time, or, I'm not going to do this because I know he expects it and I don't need to do that. I know I'm good at what I do. What that creates is not a good thing. What that creates is a lack of trust. Okay, so then your micromanaging boss is even going to get worse, because he's feeling like you're falling below the par, when in fact you're lowering your standards just as like a resentment or a pushback. So we have to be mindful if you're actually doing that stuff. And let me tell you, it's very, very common. If you're doing that stuff, you need to stop. You need to stop lowering your standards just to try and push back or be resentful to your boss. Okay, so we need to try and work that one. Now, I'm going to share my screen with you, because that leads me on to the next point that we're going to talk about, and that is about, we need to eliminate any possibility that we talked about, the damage that it causes. We need to eliminate any possibility that they need to micromanage. So what do I mean by that? So take a hard look at your recent attitude. Are you pushing back? Are you being confrontational? Are you being undermining just because you're sick of him, because you don't like him or her, because, you know, it's not working for you. And it's totally understandable if you're doing those sorts of things, but what you're doing is actually, you know, bringing your standards down. So we need to have a look at what do we need to do differently, right? So make sure that you're not doing all that. Bring your standards back up to the way you want them to be. Make sure you're at those meetings on time. Give the feedback that you need to give. And remember, it's not because of you, it's because of them. They need it for any of those things that I've mentioned before. Maybe they're new in the role. Maybe they got OCD. Maybe they're, you know, maybe they're high performers that have got no leadership skills. Maybe they're insomniacs, any of those sorts of things. Okay, so this is for them, not for you. So we need to try and change that mindset around. So what else do we need to do? So once we've had a good look at ourselves and making sure that we're doing the standard that we know that we can, we need to communicate and then do it a little bit more. So what do I mean by this? Micromanagers like to be in control, okay, for any of those reasons that I spoke about before. To head this off, you be proactive. So you be the one in the lead in this. So, for example, send your manager regular updates. So the 10 minutes of the last 10 minutes of the day or the first 10 minutes of the morning, do a quick email and say, this is what I did yesterday. This is what I'm going to do today. These are my goals. This is what I need from you with regards to support or resources, or don't need anything from you at this time, humming along nicely, bang, off it goes. Suddenly you're giving your manager feedback that they haven't even asked for. Okay, so then if you keep doing that, if you set up a 10-minute meeting every week with them to go in and give them an update, if you're proactive about it, they'll be less likely to be on the front foot and be, you know, forcing the issue. So, you know, this is called managing up. It's looking at the personalities that you have to deal with and adjusting a little bit of what you do to ensure that, you know, you can have a peaceful work life. So it doesn't mean it's going to head it off completely, but they certainly will. It will start to build trust. Oh, she's done this and now she's doing that, and or he's done this and now he's going to come in to talk to me every Friday at 2:00 and give me updates and all that sort of stuff. So you'll find they'll start to back off because that trust will start to increase. And yes, I know it can be painful, but for an extra 10 minutes work a week or a day, an extra 10 minutes a day of you writing that quick email or whatever, it's going to be absolutely worth your while and something that's going to be really important to them. Okay, so what else do I suggest that you have a look at? So you need to speak up to, and this is a little bit easier said than done. So if you work for a smaller company where things are quite intimate, it might be quite easy or a little bit easier to have that conversation about, you know, maybe you can say, look, I don't feel that you trust my work because you keep coming back and rechecking it and rechecking it and rechecking it. It's making me feel like you're not trusting my work. So that might open up a blind spot to that person. If you don't feel scared to have that conversation, if you feel there's going to be consequences or whatever, it's a little bit more difficult to do. If you've worked for a corporate company, it's a big company and it's less intimate, you know, it might be really hard to do, but there are respectful ways that you can express your concerns. So for example, you can ask your boss, listen, there's a small project coming down. It's only going to take a week long. I'd really like to have the opportunity to do that project without any insights or input from you for that whole time, because I think it's going to be a great development opportunity for me. And then because it's only a week long, next Thursday, I'll come and see you and I'll let you know how it all went and what went well and what I would do differently next time. So what you're asking them to do is actually back off, but you're doing it in a very respectful and constructive way. So that's something that you can try doing as well. So see what ways you can speak up with your boss. Can you be really honest with them because you have that relationship to say, look, I'm feeling like you're not trusting what I do because you're doing this, this, and this, and it's making me feel like, you know, I'm not trusted. Or do you need to go, okay, for this particular project or task or whatever, I'd love to do it on my own without any of your input or insights for that whole week period. And then at the end of that week, I'll put something in your calendar and we'll get together and I'll let you know how it went. And you can, you know, give me some insights then. So you're actually telling them you need them to back off a little bit. Okay, so What else do we need to do? Pick your battles. So there's lots and lots of things that your micromanaging boss could be driving you crazy about. It could be they're focusing on the procedure instead of your performance. So you might be performing really, really well, but they're picking on bits and pieces of procedure that don't really make any difference. They might be delegating you some responsibility to do stuff, but not the authority to carry it out. So if you've got a project or a task that you've got the responsibility to do and you're the project lead, but then they're not giving you any authority of budgets or resources or, any people or whatever like that, then that's going to be really difficult for you to do. Perhaps they demand project status reports, but they don't ever review them. So you don't ever get any feedback back to say, oh, that's doing, you're doing a really great job here, or I'd tweak that. You're not getting any feedback back. Maybe they're changing direction without any explanation. So all of a sudden you're going down one road and then they come in and they actually change you and you have to do a 180. That's really, really frustrating. Maybe they magnify any mistakes you make and they minimize any of your achievements. So you feel like you're always getting ribbed for stuff that you might not be doing or bits that are missed or whatever, but all the great stuff you're doing are never acknowledged. Maybe they really accept blame. So if anything goes wrong in their department, it's always pinpointed and chest poked at somebody else. Any of these things could be happening to you as with a micromanaging boss. What I want you to do is pick your battles. So what do I mean by that? Which ones can you put aside and say, oh, I can deal with that. I can deal with them needing lots of feedback because I'm going to be proactive with that and I'm going to make sure I send them an email every morning. I can deal with the fact that, they might be changing direction and I'm just going to put 3 questions in place that I'm going to ask every time they do that. All those sorts of things. Which ones can you put aside, but which ones are not negotiable for you? Which ones are not negotiable? Because if there's some there that it's continuously happening, you've spoken up, you've had a bit of a chat about it, nothing's changed. I want you to take records of conversation that you've done with dates and times and bullet points of what the content of that conversation was about and what they said back. I want you to record any incidences or dates or circumstances of what happened. I want you, this is after you've had a courageous conversation, maybe have a couple of those conversations and record them, the dates, the times, what happened. Then I want you to go to your HR manager and say, look, this is not negotiable for me. This is what's happening. They're not accepting blame for anything. And yet, we didn't get the whole target or we didn't get the deadline or we didn't get whatever. And this is not negotiable for me. I've been taking some circumstances down, it's not changed, and see if you can elicit their help with HR. And if they do, if HR or the boss's boss comes in and starts coaching that boss and you can see some behavioural changes, you can see them trying, this is where you need to let them know. You need to encourage that. You need to show your appreciation. Something as quick as, look, thank you so much for trusting me on this project. You actually let me go on this for 2 weeks without any sort of information from you, and it's really helped with my development. Thanks very much. So you're, encouraging and making sure that behavior continues. Now, this won't be easy. Shifting your micromanaging boss is not going to be easy because of all those reasons that I talked to you at the beginning of this of why they're doing it, okay? So that's really, really hard to change. And sometimes it can't be changed at all. If that's the case, if it can't be changed, if HR or the boss's boss has done what they can and they can't do anything more, if it's not negotiable for you and it is, suffering with regards to your mental health or mental well-being, you need to think what is going to be your last resort. You've done everything you possibly can. Nothing else can be done. What is your last resort? Bosses who micromanage are like, they can be cured. It is a curable thing, but it takes patience and it takes understanding and it takes tenacity and it takes resilience. And and a lot of times they're blind, have blind spots to the actions and the impacts they have. And it takes a lot of time for that behavior to change. And sometimes we just don't have the resilience to put up with it. And if you don't, then maybe your last resort is have a look around the company. Is there another team that you'd like to work with? Is there another department you'd like to work with? Is there, another part of the business that you've got an interest in? Is that an option for you. If not, maybe it's time to think about, you know what, I'm not managing up effectively. I'm not going to be, my mental health is getting worse and worse. I need to consider moving on. And maybe that's our last option. But yeah, so have a look within the company first. Maybe there's other teams or other departments that you're really keen to work with that might put you in a better sort of hierarchy or control or whatever that might be good for you. So I hope that's helped. It's a really difficult situation to be in, and it's a really common situation. Understandable but not acceptable. Yeah, Flick. It's a tough situation to be in, and it's really, really difficult to manage. You can do it, but you need resilience, you need patience, you need understanding. And to do that, you have to be fairly self-actualized yourself. So you need to be fairly comfortable in your own skin and be quite confident with, I know I'm actually bloody good at this job. I know I'm doing what I'm doing. So I'm not going to take this as a personal attack. I'm going to take this as an opportunity for me to create change in this person and do it in a really constructive way. If you don't have that resilience, and that's really, really hard to do, let me tell you, if you don't have that resilience, then try a few of these bits and pieces that we talked about today. Make sure you take records of conversation. Make sure you try and elicit the help of your HR or your boss's boss or peers or whoever you can. And if that's not working, then maybe your next option is to think about maybe it's time to move to another team or another department. That comment was from ages ago where you were talking about us lowering our standards. Yes. So now I get it, Flick. Yeah, so when I was talking about sometimes, as a pushback to micromanagers, we find ourselves lowering our standards, which is it is understandable. And it happens all the time. And it's something that is not rare. It's our automatic reaction. So what we do is we start to be a little bit more confrontational because we're pushing back. We're feeling like we're not being trusted, so we get on the back foot and get a bit defensive, and that's kind of what happens. And we start to lower our standard. We start to be late for meetings. We start to not, give the feedback that they're asking for, and then that makes their micromanaging even worse because they feel like they can't trust you, so they'll be on your back all the time, and it's going to create this explosive, toxic environment that you really don't want to be in. So really, really worth you having a think about how can you deal with it, what sort of level is your resilience, and know this is going to take time and it's not going to be easy. You can do it, but it's going to take lots and lots of time and tenacity to keep going. Okay, so elicit help if you can. So I hope that's helped. I hope it's something that you can take a few things out of this. Maybe you can use it in your own workplace. Maybe you can use it for that peer that you know is going through that particular problem. Remember, if you want the 360-degree feedback tool, because it worked for John when I was talking to you about that person who was a micromanager and didn't realize he was, we were able to reveal some blind spots to him through the 360-degree feedback tool. So maybe that's an option for you. Ask at teamleadertoolkit.com and I will send you one out, or you can just Google 360-degree feedback questions, pull the ones out that you think will work, put it together, and then go and give it to your HR person or the manager's manager to say, look, I think it's time that this person got some 360-degree feedback tool. I think it'd be great for their capability build, make it quite constructive. Okay, so I hope that helped. It's been great talking to you today. It was a brilliant question that came through, so thank you very much for that person that sent that through. I hope that you've got something out of it. I know I sent you some info directly, but hopefully this has helped as well. And if you've got any questions for us at ask@teamleadertoolkit.com, don't hesitate, bring them on in. I'll make a video up for you and we'll get cracking to sort out a solution for you. All right, so without further ado, see you, Flick. See you. I know there's some other people lurking in the background there. See you guys. Have a fantastic weekend and I will see you again next Thursday. All right, bye for now.